Eggs hatch, that's common sense, right? But here's the question, what's gonna hatch from the egg on the Dream SMP? Believe me, this theory is crazy and absolutely unexpected. I had to get down a whole page of proof for it before I went ahead with making this video, because this involves a whole lot more than just the obvious Technoblade references. And what do I mean by that? Well... You see, when I was first researching this video, I thought it was almost guaranteed that the egg would be this entity that consistently hatches and then reseals itself after consuming another thing, working similar to an oyster in that it takes in a mob or a block and then builds up all this concentrated power, all this concentrated egginess inside that mob, making them a follower of the egg, and then releases them to the world, hatching them out to do the egg's bidding, and then reseals itself after consuming something else to restart the cycle. Which seems legit, right? It would explain a lot of things about Technoblade's character, because why is he a pig? Well, the egg had a pig wander into it after it hatched once, and then after the buildup of Eggpire occurred around that pig, it turned into Technoblade. This is further backed up by the obvious fact that the egg has blood vines and Techno is the blood god. This theory seemed more and more solid the more I researched it, but wait, there's more. You see, in this theory, Techno broke free of the egg, which is needed to explain why he rebels against it and completely foils its plans later at the Red Banquet with Purple and Quackity. And the reason he broke free of the egg was because everyone who the egg possesses has always wanted something, be that power, be that belonging, be that another SMP member like Bad wants Skeppy, and in exchange for promising that thing, the egg demands power from them. It demands that they form a pseudo-government with the egg leading them. Naturally then, when Techno emerges from the egg with his one wish as to destroy all governments, the egg can't really promise him that while simultaneously asking him to form an empire, leading to Techno breaking free of the egg and then going on to be strongly opposed to it. The egg gave Techno a lot of his power, and he knows that the next person or thing to emerge from the egg almost certainly won't share his ideals and will have the power needed to stop someone as powerful as the blood god, and so he's strongly against the egg. There's also the obvious similarities in the red aesthetic and the dead giveaway that was Techno's characters in the Tales from the SMP Sir Billiam being a servant of the egg. However, the egg is literally embodied as voices in people's heads, a dead comparison to the canonical voices in Techno's head, right? And this got me thinking, what if I'm not thinking metaphorically enough about this? What if the egg isn't how a character was born on the SMP, but instead embodies the viewers of the SMP? Think about it, no matter how much effort they make in Minecraft, not one SMP member can destroy the egg, so it must be some sort of otherworldly power, right? Then there's also the fact that the egg knows exactly what literally every character on the SMP wants, a level of knowledge possessed by very few people or even entities on the SMP, except for the streamer's chat. And then there's the fact that the voices of the egg are an obvious callback to streamer's chat. This is all starting to make sense when... Wait, hold on. This theory is actually wrong, and there's one piece of evidence that completely bowls over all the pins of this crazy man corkboard like some sort of metaphorical bowling ball on steroids, because, well, this entire thing hinges on Techno knowing what the egg was before he was introduced to it on camera, and he, well, I'll just show you.
Gone too, finally.
Ah, it's a good breakfast right there.
Okay,
quick question, if it's an egg, what will hatch out of it?
God has cursed me for my hubris, and my work is never finished.
Anyway, I kept digging, and that brings me to the actual theory of this episode, and is the most batshit insane thing I've come up with in a while, right? But it just makes way too much sense for me to just ignore it. Hell, there's a page of just solid proof. You see, I was right when I said that the egg was giving rise to an SMP member. I just got the SMP member wrong. It wasn't Techno or Bad or even Ranbu that came out of the egg. Let's take a quick listen to what Ponk, who was being mind controlled by the egg, said during the Red Banquet.
Long ago, an old man, a wise man, he once told me, people change. Like the tides in the ocean,
Oh god.
The egg's power is seemingly absolute, and it works on the basis of attachment, very similar to how a certain someone operated in the disc finale, becoming the SMP's puppet master on the basis of attachment and on the basis of desire. The only time the egg's power has been snuffed out in the past, the only way to keep it from expanding and continuing its progression was shown to us way back at the start of the egg arc, and that was to cover it with obsidian, and if you'll forgive the pun, you'd have to be dreaming to not see the obvious reference to the obsidian box that is the prison, snuffing out Dream's power and keeping him from expanding his hold on the server. This part will be really important later, so keep it in mind. To talk about this more though, we've got to talk about color and the incredible significance it has on the SMP. You see, although the egg's primary color is quite obviously red, it interacts with the other colors in a very interesting and very specific set of ways, which we learned from an experiment that Bad and Ant performed on the egg a long time ago. The egg turns red things white, sucking the color out of them, leaves white things as they are, but most importantly, it turns blue things red. From the wool in the experiment to Skeppy, like some sort of color theory expert. Now, if we take a step back, we have one character on the SMP who is very closely related to the egg. One character who's intrinsically related to the color blue and also, not so coincidentally, the Dream. Ghostbird, the character who everyone knew for blue. The character who Dream turned from being blue to the obviously red Reviver by reviving him. But wait, there's even more evidence. You see, the one thing that can repel the egg, even cure people from being under the egg's influence, is the water from the fountains of Church Prime. Church Prime, religion, which is completely devoted to Dream. Dream, who would, being from the egg, be able to protect people from its influence with his own because he broke free of the egg's mind control, and that's why he initially dislikes it when Bad shows it to him, but crucially, only feigns surprise. We also know from the Tales of the SMP episode, The Masquerade, that the egg dislikes poor people and places a very heavy emphasis on money and possessions, as one might call in the SMP universe, primes, a trait that is only mirrored by Dream's religion. This also brings us to Ranbu, and the Enderman hybrid will teleport in to become relevant later, but it's important to note that apart from black and white, Ranbu's two defining colors are red and green. Ranbu, who can be controlled by, well...
Yo! Suck it, green boy!
Ranbu is called a traitor by the egg, which is clearly red, because Dream and the egg have similar power over Ranbu because of the color, but Ranbu only listens to Dream. Also, if you go back to the initial egg arc where Skeppy was cured from the egg's infection using prime water, he ended up mimicking and taking all the properties of even the slightest thing in the water. For example, turning into another BadBoyHalo because he got cured using prime water that was also BadBoyHalo bathwater. Anyway, this loss of a grip on who you are as a person, this kind of memory loss, that is extremely reminiscent of the one person who Dream directly controls in the same way that the egg controlled Skeppy. And that's right, it's our boy, Ranbu. Tommy is also related to a bit of evidence in this theory because initially he was immune to the egg.
Do you hear anything?
Oh, I do!
Okay, what do you hear?
Oh, I hear it now! I hear it now!
There you go.
The egg is saying that all three of us should start swearing. Steve.
He couldn't be controlled by it and therefore pose a threat to it, right? The egg just got on his nerves, made him nervous, got him annoyed, but was never able to control him. And then, after Toy takes a piece of the egg and puts it in his ender chest, an obsidian block that's intrinsically linked to him, he suddenly loses this immunity and becomes susceptible to the egg's influence. Wait. Where have I heard this before? Oh yeah, it's literally the plotline of when Tommy was stuck in prison, an obsidian box with Dream. Tommy was both Dream and the Egg's biggest threat before the obsidian box incident, and this is purely because Tommy doesn't conform to several rules the same way everyone else does. Puffy even directly says at one point that as Bad is getting more and more infected and infatuated by and with the Egg, he's acting more like Dream. Dream, who is incidentally the first person to ever join the server, which makes it that much more plausible that he hatched from the Egg, which we know from Tales has been there for a long time before the current SMP era, and therefore that much more possible he covered it up behind him after hatching. There's also the fact that Dream's biggest enemy, Quackity, literally wears the color blue on his skin, which is the color which symbolizes the Egg's biggest enemy, and also the Egg was found to materialize in an extremely interesting spot, the spot where BadBoyHalo learned that Fundy and Tubbo had dumped him in their quest to become Dreamin' Hunters, where Bad was most susceptible to joining the Dreamins because of the negative feelings he had towards their enemies, the Dreamin' Hunters, the place where the Egg materialized, ready to capitalize on these feelings.
A banquet that none of us are ever going to forget. And yeah, thank you for coming, everybody.
Oh.
Prepare to die.
What?
The Egg has more power than Dream because Dream derives, or should I say derived? Derove? Whatever. Dream took his power from the Egg, and that's why the Egg can fully mind control people, similar to how it did Pong, Skeppy, and Bad, but Dream can only partially do the same, like he does with Ranbu. And also, when Dream killed Tommy, the Eggpire was incredibly happy, because Dream had got one of the biggest obstacles of the Eggpire out of their way, and therefore shared not only a modus operandi with them, but also a common goal for a lot of cases. Then there's the fact that the one person who Dream can control, Ranbu, is also the only person on the server who's averse to water. Water, which in the Egg's case can break people free from its mind control when blessed by Dream's religion, and therefore in Dream's case could probably do the same if modified by some other higher power, let's say maybe a literal shark god. Punk even likens the control that the Egg has over its followers to the power that the prison, and by extension Dream, has over Sam, and this is even more backed up by the fact that Hannah describes the times when she's under the Egg's control as sleepwalk-like, that she can't remember anything from them. Very similar to how Ranbu describes his Enderwalk state when Dream is controlling him. him. And that leads us to the most important takeaway from this theory. You see, I mentioned before that the prison snuffed out Dream's power, sure, but what I didn't point out is that in both of the cases, the Egg and Dream both influenced the builders of their obsidian boxes to cage them. Dream did it by commissioning Sam, and the Egg did as well, as we see it absorbs the obsidian to become bigger after a bit. Bad then said in the lore stream that trapping the Egg in the obsidian was all planned, was for a purpose, and it helped make the Egg that much stronger. Now, if Dream and the Egg are really that similar, it's only logical to assume that Dream being trapped in prison is, by extension, only making him stronger, only meaning that once Technoblade breaks him out with the blueprints he found at the end of the last lore stream, that the Dream SMP is in the most danger it's ever been in. Subscribe if you enjoyed,